Good afternoon, and welcome to this session of Wilmington City Council's Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting. My name is Bud Friel, and I'll be hosting the meeting today. This is a little different than the previous budget hearings we had, in the fact that we have three pieces of legislation that we have to address first. I wanted to mention that I'm being joined by fellow council members, President Hanifa Shabazz, Councilmember Linda Gray, and Councilmember Cyril Adams, and they are both, and Councilmember Chris Johnson, and they are all members of the Finance Committee. So we're going to jump right into the legislation. I'm going to alert council members that we only have about 15 minutes for each piece. So if you do want to make comments, you'll have to keep them to 2 minutes, and you'll get to comment once. Or we'll try to get to the public and then vote. It is my hope that we will vote all three of these pieces out of committee, and then let the council have a bigger debate on the issues when they meet on May 7th. All right, we've also been joined by Cynthia Oliver, who's also a member of the Finance Committee. All right, the first piece is ordinance number 20018, establishing salaries of city council members for the 188th council session to be effective as of January 5th, 2021. It is our responsibility every 4 years to set the salaries for the next council. Dating back to the mid to late 1980s, the process that we followed has been that the salaries would be increased by anything that the employees had received for the 4 previous years. So in that case, there has been a 3% increase over 2 years. So the salary, I already said it. So the salary increase for the next council would be a 3% increase. The impact in fiscal year 21 would be about $6,600. For a calendar year, it would be just over $13,000. So that's the process we've followed for years. We are required by code to have this done in the first 6 months of this year. It cannot be done in the last 6 months. So that's why we're moving forward with it at this time. Does council members have any questions? Mr. Johnson?
Hi, good afternoon. I would like to make a friendly amendment to this ordinance. I believe I've spoken about this previously. Obviously, given the financial situation in the city right now, I know we're required to do this by code, but I believe the timing is not great. So with that, I would like to make the amendment wherever it says 2021, we amend that to say 2022 on throughout the ordinance. And at that point, by January 2022, we should be in a better situation. And then at that point, again, individual council members can accept or decline the salary adjustment.
Just let me clarify. So in the title, it would read January 4th, 2022. In the fourth whereas, it would read January 4th, 2022. In the fifth whereas, January 2022. In section 3, there are 2 pieces that would say January 4th, 2022, and in the synopsis, it would say January 4th, 2022. I will second that motion. Second that motion. On the question, Ms. Oliver, did you have a question?
I was going to second it myself, so moved.
Okay. Is there, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, now we're back to the original amendment. Are there any other questions or comments on the original ordinance to set the salaries for the next council coming in next year?
Councilman, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Who's that? President? Is that President Shabazz?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just would like to just add to the comments in that that moved it to the 22nd to year 2022. Even at that time, members of council have the ability at then that time to either vote to accept it or not. And even the council members, even in this term as well as other terms, who have offered to forego their salaries and increases, those type of things can be taken into consideration. So I think moving to 22 gives us an opportunity to see economically how we fare, and also to take considerations the financial, the needs of members of council as well. So I make a motion to move to, what am I trying to do?
It's already been done.
No, not to separate.
It's already been moved and seconded. The amendment was already moved and seconded. At this point, I'm going to turn to the public to see if there's any comments from the public. I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I'm going to go back to council. All those in favor of ordinance number 20-018 as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is anyone opposed? Okay. This will be on the agenda Thursday, May 7th. The next ordinance number 20-019, amending Chapter 2 of the City Code in order to authorize the city treasurer to access the budget reserve account funds for fiscal year 2020 and require replenishment of the budget reserve account funds in the ensuing fiscal year. Is Mr. Guy with us? 1 second.
Hello?
Is Mr. Guy with us? Mr.
Hello,
Guy,
can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
You have your ordinance up.
Yeah, this here is just the annual ordinance that we normally process to address the budget reserve. Nothing new to it. Same one we've done each year.
Mr. Guy, being that we're in the situation we're in with the COVID-19 crisis, I would like to add, I hope it can be considered a friendly amendment at the end of the paragraph where it says October 1st, 2020. I'd like to add the language, in addition to the date the city treasurer draws down the funds, the city treasurer shall notify all members of city council in writing by email the amount of the drawdown, the purpose of the drawdown, and the date of the drawdown. Could I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Moved in second on the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Is there anything else, Mr. Guy? You want me to go
That's
ahead?
it.
And all right, let me just check to see if there's any public comments. Ms. McDermott, did you have a comment before we vote? Hello? Is your mic on?
Must have stepped away.
Ms. McDermott, is your mic on? Did you want to speak?
He must have stepped away. She's been on.
Councilman Friel,
Yeah, I'm here.
this is,
Are you
This
speaking for
is-
Ms. McDermott?
yeah, this is Velda.
Yes, go ahead.
I think Mary McDermott, she's having some technical difficulties, so she may be trying to log back in.
Okay, go ahead.
But what I would like to add and have members of council consider is, as Councilman Guy said, this typically is a standard routine, and we typically don't have the need to access those funds, although we annually have made it a routine to obtain the authorization to allow us to manage through cyclical and seasonal declines in the revenues. However, in light of what the last several weeks have presented, and recognizing that the effects of this may extend beyond the June 30th date, which the ordinance currently reflects, I would ask council and the sponsor to consider amending the ordinance to permit access to the budget reserve through June of 2021. The greater likelihood is that the need to access the budget reserve funds will present itself sometime after June 30th of 2020, which the ordinance would currently allow.
Wow,
I'm confused.
that's a whole nother year, you're saying.
Mhm. Well, another alternative then, though, is to, frankly, is that we would be looking to come right back to council July 1st with another ordinance, because given the level of uncertainty of when the need to access the reserves may present itself, it would be prudent to have it in place during the time period of that uncertainty. Typically, we know the time of year that cyclically we see a decline in revenues. And so we customarily make the request as we're approaching that window of time. Currently, that window is likely to last over a more extended period of time. And
Okay, let me go ahead and get some additional comments here. So your request is the June 30th, 2021. Am I hearing that right?
or some period of time
Other than 1 month.
beyond June 30th of 2020, because that will only cover essentially the next 60 days. And
okay.
And did you follow me?
Yeah, I got you.
Mhm.
Yep. So let me go ahead and get some other comments here. As I stated, we don't have a lot of time to work on these ordinances. So let me get some comments and see what we can do here. Mr. Johnson, do you have your hand up?
Yes, yes. I certainly I would thank Treasurer Otter Jones for the input. I do see somewhat of a legal problem. And again, I'm not the prime sponsor, but I believe we can't extend this past the 107th City Council. So I would say December 31st, 2020 certainly would be fine. And then I think next council by law would have to restart that. I mean, because it would technically it's a new council, you know, there's a new treasurer's office installment. So all of that I think needs to play out. So I have no problem. I think December 31st makes sense, but I don't think legally we can actually do until June 2021.
At the beginning of the meeting, I'm asking all council members to keep their comments to 2 minutes so that we can get everything done in this hour that we have set aside. Next up is Mr. Adams.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Friel. I believe the treasurer makes a good point also. However, I think the period should be extended to September 30th and let her come in each quarter based on needs. I realize we're probably going to have to redo the budget come the end of September 30th also. So I think that we'd have a better read on everything when 3-month intervals. I do say that her point is very well taken, though, especially since we extended tax filings on out to July 15th, so she could very well actually run out of cash this time around. But I think having her do it on a quarterly basis, since we do size everything up on a quarter, and I know finance also reconciles quarterly also. So I would like to change her suggestion to September 30th if the city treasurer doesn't have any hesitation about that, and allow her to come back in each quarter with an additional request and modification accordingly.
Okay, Mr. Guy.
Yes, what I'd like to do is make sure everybody gets a chance to weigh in. And then I'm interested in hearing what the treasurer recommends after hearing the various thoughts.
Okay.
And then I'll come back to you as a sponsor.
Okay, Ms. Washington. You want to
Yeah,
address this concern?
yes. As I read the ordinance, it looks like the budget reserve drawdown reflects FY20 budget to be replenished in October. So I think that there will need to be an amendment to actually reflect FY21 as well. So that's why I have a little hesitation about accepting it now. I think that we could actually revisit this again. And if we need to draw down the budget reserve, we need to extend that period of time where it reflects the FY21 budget. We should introduce another piece of legislation to say that. But as I read this ordinance, it reflects the FY21 expenditure drawdown.
Okay, Ms. Oliver? Ms. Oliver, are you with us?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to say, I heard Treasurer, Velda, I told the Treasurer, say, we just have to revisit it, and I'm willing to revisit it in September or December.
Okay. Okay, President Shabazz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I think taking all the points that's been shared today into consideration, I do think that to stay with compliance with the law, also with our financial income schedule and the uncertainties, I too agree that, maybe on a quarterly basis or coming back to revisit it to see exactly where we are, since there's so many uncertainties, would be most prudent, so that we are doing things that we know with whatever minor information we can get as time goes on, that we are doing things that are fiscally responsible and feasible. So, I agree. I would agree with coming back to revisit the legislation and extending it as needed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Adams, this will be your last time to speak on this bill.
Yes, I understand that, Mr. Field. Thank you. Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we address the treasurer's concern by saying that we can extend this to September 30th and allow her to come back in on a quarterly basis for this. Again,
Second.
yeah.
But you're gonna have to be a little more specific with your motion, because if you
Okay.
let me just finish real quick, Mr. Adams. You read the ordinance, it talks strictly about the fiscal year 2020 budget.
I understand that, but the treasurer is quite on point. If we extended tax filings till July 15th, that's in 2021's budget, and she wouldn't have collected all her tax payments that she expected to collect in 2020.
No,
So
no.
in this particular instance,
Let me just clarify something. We normally do this because our tax revenues come in August. Our property tax revenues come in August.
yes.
And we find the crunch usually in the end of the fiscal year. So we give the treasurer until the tax receipts come in August, and then we go ahead and pay it back August 1st.
Yes,
So-
we get a big payday through net profits tax and city wage tax and things like that on April 15th that she's not going to be able to collect now until July 15th. And so I think the treasurer's right on with this. I don't like the part where we go out a year and a half, but I certainly don't mind the treasurer coming in on a quarterly basis, especially considering the financial circumstances due to the pandemic. And so I'd like to extend this out to September 30th. And however, the ordinance can be written so that she has whatever borrowing authority she needs to September 30th. And that she can report back to the mayor and the finance chair whenever she does the drawdown. So whatever language is necessary, sir.
All right. Let's see what we got next up here.
Yeah, we have a second on that motion, I know.
Well, we're going to have to, I'm trying to work on the wording of it, Mr. Adams. I'll get back to you because we're going to have to do more than just say September 30th.
Right.
I'm trying to read the language here in the ordinance and mark it
Okay,
up.
so why don't I make the motion to for September 30th again, and and we can vote.
All right, let me go through what I think we have. If this is
Okay.
okay for you. In the third line, in the first whereas, it would read July 1st, 2019 to September 30th, 2020. Then in section 2-376 under C, it would have to say, you would have to add account funds shall be pertain to fiscal year 2020 and 2021. And then you'd have to add that at the other two lines. And at the end, I was going to suggest that it be replenished by December 1st, 2020. That way, if you find yourself in October that you're going to be accessing it again, we can go ahead, council come back and amend this ordinance and do it in the next calendar year. Does that address what you're trying to do, Mr. Adams?
Yes, that would give her a 2-month period of
Yes.
October and November in order to fund the shortage then, right? So, and
Or come back down.
I would be okay with those changes. Certainly, I'd like the treasurer to weigh in if she'd be okay with that too, and I think we could go forward with that.
President Shabazz?
On the question of it, in your language, I was trying to follow along with you, Councilman Phil, in reference to including the year 21, because does the language speaks to the 2020 budget? Does that include us going down into, because we'll be in the 2021 budget when the September date comes and October date comes around. So does that give?
That's why I was saying 2020 and fiscal year 2020.
Okay, that's what I would just wanted to be clear that I didn't hear that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who's next?
Just had a
Mr. Guy, do you want to wait or do you want to talk?
I held up last time because I wanted to make sure that the treasurer had a chance to hear everybody's thoughts. And I wanted to hear from her one more time as to how she considers all those thoughts. And I am going to make a brief comment before that. And what it seems to me is that we're all comfortable year after year with this as written. So I don't think there's a big issue as written, but it does, everybody's comments to some extent reflect that we may need to come back to this as we learn more information. And so it might be the easiest thing to do is to get the authority right now as we do annually. And we can go ahead and get a rough draft of what we may need in the future and get that in the pipeline and just sit on that until later on when the treasurer gets back to us and tells us, okay, I need another one of these to give me a greater time period to operate with. So those were my thoughts, but I'd like to hear, once everybody makes their comments, I see the mayor's chief of staff has her hand up.
Well,
We'd like to hear from
I
don't want to shock you, but I agree with you 100%.
You're not shocked.
Let me go ahead and go to Ms. Washington, and then we'll go back to our city treasurer. I think she's there.
I'm here. I'm back here. I just had a question on whether we can actually enact any legislation regarding FY21 when it's not even passed yet. That was my only
that's
question.
my concern too. That's why I think Mr. Guy's suggestion is a good one.
Okay.
All right.
That's my point.
City treasurer, you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Did you hear all those comments?
I did, and I appreciate all of the input, and I agree. I wanted to make sure that we were considering the and to alert council to what's different about the request this time and the extended time over which this uncertainty is going to last, which may, different from historically require the access at some point in time further out. But I am totally comfortable with the recommendation of Councilman Guy, and that we make put in place the ordinance as is now and then come back. So that's fine. My primary goal was to make sure that that council is alerted and that we're all poised to take whatever actions necessary in light of the ongoing uncertainty.
Well, City Treasurer, you know, probably from my recent email that I agree. I think this isn't going to be something that's going to be over in a couple of months.
Mhm.
It could be a couple of years before we know all the impacts from how people work and wage tax and things like that. So,
Mhm.
if there's no other comments this time, can I just go ahead to the public and see if there's any additional public comment? That's all right. I don't see any. Mr. Guy, is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Well, I think we're on Mr. Adams' motion to amend.
Well, I just went through some language and it was never seconded or anything like that. So we're back to the original ordinance with the notification piece that was put in there.
Excuse me, Mr. Phil, I did have a motion contingent on a language. So certainly if I agree with your language, we'd have to vote on the motion. And so I'll make the motion again. I'll make the motion based on the language that you modified, saying 21 and October 1 and December 1.
Okay, sir. Okay.
I second Mr. Adams' modified as noted amendment.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Once again, this has to be just finance committee members. All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? I'm a no.
No.
3 ayes and 2 noes.
Mhm.
Well,
Let me
All
just
right.
ask, who are we saying no to or yes to?
So to Mr. Adams' motion to extend it to September 30th and December 1. All right. So
Isn't,
And I thought it was understood
did you vote? Wait. I'm still trying to sort out the vote. Did you vote, Ms. Gray?
no, I have not voted yet.
Do you want to vote?
Yes, I would like to vote, but I'm trying to find out because you said you agreed with Guy's suggestion. So is that the one we're discussing or we're discussing?
No, we're discussing Mr. Adams' amendment.
And how does that differ?
Mr. Guy was leaving it as is, basically with the June 30th date.
Come back.
Mr. Adams wants to change it, extend it out to September 30th.
But Mr. Guy said to come back in September also, right?
No, he said, come back.
Okay.
You might be coming back in July.
Okay, I'm supporting Mr. Adams.
Okay, so then it has passed.
No, I'm sorry, I need to change my vote, because I was misunderstood. I was in the same thing as Councilwoman Gray. I thought we was gonna come back and look at it again. That's where my vote is in favor of. Sorry, Mr. Adams, but I do agree with the coming back into July. So my vote would be a no.
All right, so just let me make sure. So the 3 yes votes are Mr. Adams, Ms. Gray, and Mr. Johnson. There's 3 no votes, President Shabazz, myself, and Ms. Oliver. Do I have those right?
Yes.
Yeah, to the chairman, I actually, same thing as council president. I'm going to rescind that.
Then it fails to pass, so we're back.
Come back.
Thank you. It fails to pass, so we're back to Mr. Guy's original ordinance with the notification piece. Are there any additional comments?
Yes. Councilman Adams here, yes. His original ordinance said that the treasurer is going to go out to June 30th, 2021 on this.
No,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
so you're giving her authorization through
No,
that
sorry,
period of time?
No, sir, it doesn't say that. It says June 30th, 2020.
right.
We're back to the original orders, except for the one little notification piece. Okay, listen, I'm going to call for a vote on this. We're taking a vote on ordinance number 20-019 as amended with the notification. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes, and I believe it's on the agenda for May 7th. The next ordinance we have is ordinance 20-010, authorize an amendment to a sublease agreement between the city and DETV. What's that say? Foundation. Who can speak to this?
Am I speaking to it?
Who can speak to this ordinance?
You are.
I can as chair of the CVT.
Okay.
This ordinance is to amend the contract with the third-party operator with the with the reviewing of the agreement and understanding that the operator is the operator and the operation of the CTV of the Channel 28 is a city operation, and therefore we are taking ensure that all of the utilities and major operations and ownership of the station and its operations is within our control as the city. That's what.
Okay, questions? I apologize. I want to acknowledge that Councilmember Rashima Dixon had joined us during the last discussion. Mr. Guy.
Yes. As far as I can tell, this community has created, owned, and operated the television station. And that when it was put out to bid, it had already been predetermined what was going to happen. And one thing that has happened is that the conditions associated with it being put out to bid aren't being honored. So the people who bid on it, if they knew that everything was going to get paid for, then folks might have had some changes or modifications as to how they bid. In fact, there might have been more people bidding if it was understood that there was going to be what I call changes to the original agreement. So this is really problematic, especially when this was a community asset that, as far as I'm concerned, was illegally stolen and now getting ready to be funded beyond what was agreed to.
Okay.
Now, that's my general comment. I'll have some more comments by the time it's time to vote on this. But this is really a problem. And then the other thing is that somebody told me I was on Channel 28 yesterday, and I wasn't on Channel 28 yesterday. So I want to mention that so folks know I don't have a conflict of interest with Channel 28. I haven't been on Channel 28. I was on there when Lapa was on there. I've been on it before there was a Lapa.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that that's not an issue. And if there's people on this council who voted to take this from the community and now they're on the shows on this channel, that further is evidence of the concerns I expressed earlier. So I think we need to get a ruling or something from the law department about people who voted who now show up on this channel.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. I want to stay on this, make sure we stay on the ordinance as presented. President Shabazz.
I just want to make my clarification. The station is owned by the city. It's part of the PEG, and the managing operator is a third-party operator that's been commissioned. And we felt that after reviewing all of the legalities and current past agreements, that in order to ensure that the city had full control over the the station, its equipment, and all of that goes with the station, that we had required that we had that type of control. And so that's what this ordinance is doing, is making sure that all of those things are in place, because it's a city-owned TV station that was operated by a third-party individual entity. So that's the reason why there's been changes in its mode of operation. So we're not held, that we could not get control of the equipment, access to the building, ensure that it's operating. We, the city, put ourselves in a position where we have control of that, and our operator is just operating the daily operations of the TV station.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, did you have a comment?
Yes, I want to echo the sentiments of Council President, the supporters of this. The studio is actually in my district, and it is definitely not only a community asset, but a citywide asset, a regional asset. And I think whatever we can do, this agreement's already been agreed to. I think we need to support and make sure that the studio is in good condition and thriving. And going outside of the politics of it, we need to make sure this is a successful station. And I think this ordinance amendment goes towards that.
Okay. Mr. Guy, this is going to be the last comment, and then we'll go ahead and take a vote to see what we're going to do with this. Okay.
Okay. I guess I would first of all say the argument about whose district it is, sometimes that matters to me. In this case, the FCC put in laws historically to make sure that the voices of minority members of the community could be heard. And in Wilmington, Delaware, a long time ago, a long time ago, the minority community had a station created and operated, and it's the only voice that the minority community has had. And as part of the gentrification effort, that included closing the opportunity for the minority community to have shows and communicate. And the mayor and the president appointed all of the people that recommended that, and they had that passed. So I don't really, whose district it's in, it belongs to the people who created it. So from a civil rights perspective, the district that you represent is irrelevant. What was stolen was something was stolen from Black people who built it from nothing. So it's an anti-African-American business series of events. And the object was to destroy it, to make sure that it could not be used by the people who built it and developed it. And so to that extent, this is now trying to provide money where when the people struggled who built it, there wasn't money made available.
That's not so.
Nor was this
That's not so.
in the RFP. So it's a game going on, and this is one of them ones where the FCC or the U.S. Attorney's Office need to get involved, especially when you start seeing the people voting actually on the channel. It's now a complete wrongful act. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. Is there anyone from the public that wanted to make a comment? All right, not seeing any. I'll accept the motion to move ordinance 20010, authorizing amendment to a sublease agreement between the City and DETV Foundation to the full council for a vote on May 7th.
So moved. What?
Can I hear a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this will also be on the agenda for May 7th, all three of these. At this time, we're going to take a short break and we're going to get ready for our first budget hearing for the evening, and that will be the Finance Department. Thank you. I'm stunned that we're able to go. Good afternoon and welcome back to this session of Wilmington City Council's Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting. My name is Bud Friel. I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. I just want to acknowledge other council members that are with us. President Nifa Shabazz, Councilmember Chris Johnson, Councilmember Cyril Adams, Councilmember Rashima Dixon, Councilmember Sam Guy, and Councilmember Cynthia Oliver. As you know, the mayor presented his fiscal year 2021 budget back in March, and then it becomes council's responsibility to review that budget. And by code, we have to pass a balanced budget by the end of May. This is the sixth in a series of budget hearings. But I do want to remind people that the mayor's budget was proposed before the COVID-19 crisis really hit us. So during the budget, you will hear some additional comments about cuts that were being made after the budget was proposed. But I will tell you that we will probably be back here in the fall making more adjustments to the budget. It could be several times over the next fiscal year. We'll continue with the same format we've used for other hearings. We'll have a brief presentation by the Office of Management and Budget. Then we will turn over to the Director of Finance Department, Mr. Brett Taylor. And then we will have, we'll go through the questions and answers. There's a time limit of 90 minutes on this budget hearing. I'm asking all council members to keep questions to budgetary matters. Any programmatic or constituent issues should be addressed in other forums. If we don't get through all the questions, council can follow up with the department head or with our Chief of Staff, Michelle Bastnight. There will be a period at the end of the hearing for public comment. Constituents will have a chance to log in and raise their hand. I will give them 3 minutes, but they must keep their comments to the budget that we are reviewing. I also want to acknowledge that we have our the Mayor's Chief of Staff with us, and that's Tanny Washington. So not seeing any other comments at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the Office of Management and Budget for their review. Are you with us?
Yes, George. Hello?
Yes, George, I can hear you.
Yes, okay, all right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Council President, and honorable members of City Council. I would like to present the Finance Department proposed operating budget for FY 2021. The budget details I'm presenting here are based on the original proposed budget, which was developed prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Finance Director will be discussing revisions to some of the budget items during his presentation. The department proposed budget request, which includes the general and water source funds, is $17.2 million. The proposed general fund budget request is just under $10.1 million. This represents an increase of $469,000 or 4.9% over the FY 2020 budget. Here are the various account changes. Personal services increased by $54,000 or 1%. Regular salaries rose by $77,400, largely due to a citywide 2% COLA, step increases for non-union classified employees, and annual reviews for executive and managerial employees. Pension contributions decreased by $44,000. Overtime decreased by $13,000 due to a lesser need for staffing during the wage tax filing season. MS&E in the general fund increased a total of $398,000 or 10.1%. The total increase consists of the following. Parking citations commissions rose by $132,500 to cover costs associated with the Paylog digital parking permit service, and also an increase in the parking citations contract. Because sheriff save activity is trending downward, collection expense legal fee series decreased by $50,000. Collection expense red light commissions increased by $255,000 to cover the cost of installing digital red light cameras at 17 additional intersections in the city. Due to an increased number of customers using a credit card for payment, collection expense credit card fees increased by $20,000. Log box charges increased by $55,000 to cover an increase in the number of transactions processed. Moving on to the water source fund, the department budget request is just under $7.2 million. This represents an increase of $322,000 or 4.7% over the FY 2020 budget. Here are the various account changes that occurred. Personal services decreased by $73,000 or 2.8%. A meter reader position was eliminated for a savings of $76,500. Regular salaries rose by a net $11,650 or 0.7% due to a citywide 2% COLA, step increases for non-union classified employees, annual reviews for executive and managerial employees. Hospitalization decreased by $52,000 as a result of employees choosing the lower cost PPO2 and EPO healthcare plans. MS&E in the water source fund increased a total of $362,000 or 8.9%. The total increase consists of the following. The department is implementing a water utility call center to be hosted by a third-party entity, resulting in an increase of $220,000 to miscellaneous charges. The change to monthly billing has also increased the payments flowing through the department logbox service, necessitating an increase of $90,000 in the logbox account. Computer software licenses increased by $40,000 to provide support and maintenance for a debt management software program. Finally, debt service increased by $28,500 per the existing debt service schedule. This concludes my overview of the Finance Department proposed budget. I will be glad to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, George. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Brett Taylor, Director of Finance, who can go through an opening presentation. If there's any other members of staff that are on here that you want to introduce, Mr. Taylor, that's fine also. And then we'll get into the questions and answers. Mr. Taylor, are you with us?
I am. Thank you very much for having me. My opening comments are that the Department of Finance, first thing I want to say is thank you to the employees of the Department of Finance. During the COVID-19 situation, our department employees have really stepped up to the challenge and have adjusted very well to the changes in the working environment. Many of them are working from home in terms of the social distancing, but we have not missed a beat with respect to the processing of payments as well as the collection of revenue. Likewise, we have a number of individuals that have had to stay in the building due to the sensitive nature of the information that we deal with. We have to keep the information in the building, and does not allow us to take work home and work in a remote setting. With that said, these employees have come in and day out and have really stepped up to the challenge of having to work in kind of uncertain conditions. So I'd like to say thank you to them, and I applaud a good job. From our standpoint, we are still on pace with a lot of the initiatives that we had introduced last year, primarily in terms of improving our customer service, improving our collections of accounts, improving a number of our processes, and integrating new technology into those processes to make us more efficient. With that said, I think we've In fact, we've had no head increase in terms of personnel. In fact, we're going to be reducing one down. We anticipate going through the year, evaluating these very same systems and getting better. That seems to be the narrative that we're going to have in FY21. We are reaching out to organizations outside of ours to get advice on best practices on what we can do to improve the efficiency of the department and how we function. We continue to collect revenue, although the customer service center is closed here in the city. We have stepped up and people are paying online. That's really kind of a good news for us, is that just in the last month, we've seen our increase in payment in the utilization of our payment modules go from 36% to almost 50% of the payments coming in are coming in through the electronic means. So we're, I think for a tough situation, I think we're managing through it very well. We could go on to the presentation.
Did you want to discuss your vision and some of your priorities?
Our role has not changed demonstrably from last year. We continue to be responsible for the overall financial management of the city. That includes financial oversight, collections, accounting, accounts receivable, financial analysis, accounts payable, parking, and utility financing. As you recall, we are the financial management system for our municipal water utility. We mail out 30,000 bills a month. With that, we also receive payments from 98% of those. So we are very, very busy in this regard. Our mission statement was changed last year and we still stand by it. We want to have excellence in financial management, and we want to preserve the financial integrity of the city of Wilmington through excellent accounting services, customer service, and financial management. Next slide. Our vision statement remains the same. We want to develop financial policies and systems that ensure a strong financial and effective city government. We want to maintain the financial integrity of the city and its related agencies through generally accepted accounting principles, and to provide excellent customer service through courteous engagement and ease of transactions. Next slide. As George had referred to it earlier, our budget consists of $17.2 million. That is split between $10 million for the general fund and roughly 7.2 for the water sewer fund. We have a staff of 84 full-time personnel, and we have 9 divisions in which we work. Next slide. The priorities for fiscal year 21, again, are very consistent with FY20. We want to continue to provide a positive customer service experience for constituents. We want to ensure highly reliable accounting policies and quality control and quality assurance. This is an area that we are refocusing this year. We had, as I've said through several finance committee meetings, we are continuing to look at our accounting practices during the year and not waiting to the close of the fiscal year to address certain items within the general ledger, so that when we do close the books this year, we will have a cleaner, more efficient audit. Likewise, we have quality control and quality assurance processes we're putting in place. We're taking a real strong look at our utility billing and billing overall, and we're looking at how we can improve the payment systems. This is all consistent with optimizing internal collection processes and improve revenue performance. We have a Brian Dennis, who is our account services manager, has come on board, supervisor has come on board and has given us a real boost towards looking at our collection processes. We are still continuing to look at the biggest owers for the city. We are focusing on them to ensure that those who have not paid and who continue to accumulate large bills will be our first and foremost priority. Lastly, we cultivate the best practices through improved business processes, enhanced data management, and relevant technology. You will be hearing in 2021 some changes to how we perform our processes, including going out and looking for a new payment system. The payment system will consist of a single portal for a customer to go in and be able to look at all of their accounts in one view and to be able to pay on those accounts without having to go to multiple payment systems. Likewise, we're going to be looking at some of our billing technology and some of our telephone connections. I just got off the phone today talking about a possible mobile application for being able to look up and pay bills using your mobile phone. Next slide. 3 areas that we are concerned about. We call them the 3 C's. One is collections. Again, focusing on top accounts. We want to reduce our outstanding accounts receivable year over year. We want to increase the online payment use from 25% to 50%. This is good news because I think we are seeing that experience right now, albeit we have only 1 month of data to show. We're going to watch this number carefully through the rest of the year. Compliance. We want to ensure we have a clean audit. We want to make sure that we ensure GASB rule compliance is in effect. We want to close the fiscal year timely and without significant or material findings. We also want to pay vendor invoices within 30 days of invoice date. And of course, reduce the number of findings of internal audits. Next page. Customer service. This is the 3rd C. Implement the customer service call center. Now this is in place. We have ongoing training for customer service in all of the departments through all of the employees. We have instituted a purchase card program for all departments to go ahead and purchase items that are under $5,000, therefore reducing the need for a purchase order. And we want to implement a vendor self-serve. That means any vendor who does business with the Department of Finance can go online and be able to do all of their business virtually. We've instituted the call service center, and our wait times have been reduced to less than 1 minute. We've also have noticed our abandoned call rate is down below 3%, and our call processing rate is approximately 4 minutes. We have triaged this call center to be able to provide customers support through telephone payments or to talk to a live person to provide payment assistance. We're also increasing the use of e-commerce. This is ACH utilization for vendors to be able to make payments through ACH instead of the vendor checks. One other area that I think I'd like to highlight is that we went live this week with a system whereby we're taking electronic payments from online banks that had previously paid by check. We would often get 500 checks a day, which manually had to be processed in the Munis system. That has now been converted over to an e-lockbox. Those checks are now coming to us virtually, and the information is being uploaded into Munis directly. So we have saved a significant number of person hours with this new process. Now, we just went live on Friday, It's going to take us a little bit of time to work out the details and build some metrics, but I would be happy to come back and share those with you at a later date. So we have some great things going on in the Department of Finance. I think that we're weathering the storm pretty well. We have a dedicated team that is interested in making sure that payments get processed appropriately and revenue is collected. It's going to be vital that, particularly during this time of uncertainty, we stay on our toes and to be able to track revenues in a way that are where the administration can make some decisions about how the revenue is coming in and how we can step up collections and how we can weather this storm coming. I'd be happy to take questions from council members. I do have a list of questions that Marshall had given. I don't know if, Mr. Chair, you want to go through those.
That's the process.
First,
We're going to go
taking
through those
questions.
questions, and there might be other questions as we're going through them. All right. I wanted to mention that we've been joined by Councilmember Linda Gray from the First District. Ms. Oliver, I haven't even gotten to ask the question yet. You got your hand up. Are you okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
No, I was going, no, just making sure everything was okay. I'll wait till you get to the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, discuss the budgetary account lines that could potentially be impacted as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The good news is that the Department of Finance doesn't anticipate any additional expenses or significant additional expenses as a result of COVID-19. Other than the masks and some of the PPE that has come in to help with the social distancing issues we've taken care of. We have allocated money from our operating budget to have laptops provided to those individuals who want to work from home. The customer service center has been closed off to the public, but we've pivoted and we are able to streamline our staff to work both inside and outside on the issues. So we don't anticipate anything significant outside of that.
You don't anticipate any additional cuts in your budget that you're presenting?
Those cuts are being, well, not at this time. We are still working through with the administration what if we do see a downturn in the revenue. We're going to be alongside my colleagues in the other departments offering up potential areas where we could reduce.
Okay. Discuss the current vacant position, specify the duration of vacancy, time frame for filling the positions.
We have an accounts payable supervisor that works in our accounting office on the 5th floor. Accounts service rep 2, which is downstairs in the 1st floor area, and an accounts services agent. Eloise Watson, who retired after, 40 plus years, has left us and enjoying her retirement, but we had an open position for that. Now, these have been placed on hold. All 3 of these positions have been placed on hold due to a hiring freeze until we have some certainty around what the revenue picture looks like.
Discuss any proposed changes to positions, new position, deleted, upgrades, title changes, etc.
Yes. One of our challenges has been over the years, we have had only one meter reader in the Department of Finance who would be responsible for shutoffs, turn-ons, and special meter reads. That seems to be, having one individual seems to be a bit of a, not a liability, but it doesn't allow us to be as effective as we can on shutoffs and turn-ons. We have made an arrangement with the Department of Public Works to take on the responsibility of shutoffs and turn-ons for bill paying issues, as well as their own issues with regard to service. So we have agreed to give up one meter reader. That position is going to be included in the Public Works budget. We do have one account rep that will handle some of our special service, special billing reads. That position is going to continue to stay in this department. But for the most part, we think that the Department of Public Works will, by picking this up, we'll solve two problems. One, we'll be more effective at shutoffs and turn-ons, as well as Public Works really should be responsible for actually touching the infrastructure connected to the system. So there won't be any liability issues.
Okay. Discuss the 5.5 budget in miscellaneous services up 750,000 over the prior year budget. I know that's split between the general fund and water sewer fund. Specify vendor's name, length of contract, et cetera. Specify if any vendors are DBEs.
That's all yeah. So we've got a number of contracts that we have taken on over the last 2 years, and it's been primarily due to the billing shifting to monthly billing, as well as trying to get a handle on our parking collections and citations. For instance, we have a number of contractors. The ones that we have in our department are under false alarms, parking citations through conduit, and red light cameras through conduit. We also have the collection service through conduit. We have the Randstad. If you can go to the next chart, please. We also have collection services under conduit. We have the legal teams who help us with our collections and sheriff sales. We also have an increase in our call center costs through Randstad. This is the third-party call center that handles the initial calls from for the water utility. We're expanding that this year, and we'll talk about that a little bit, because we're adding more departments to the Randstad, to the call center requirements. Another is that our mailroom systems budget had gone up as a result of the number of mailings. If you recall, we had a mid-year budget adjustment due to the mailroom systems. The number of mailings we were doing had tripled, and our budget had played catch up. So what we're seeing is we're adding more services in order to make sure that we meet the demand. Sorry.
Councilmember Johnson, did you have a question? Councilmember Johnson?
Yes. Director Taylor, I'm familiar with the history of the red light program and conduit, but is there some way that there can be some modification of the contract given the pandemic? Is there a exit clause, act of God clause? Because looking at it, it's a $1.5 million contract. But if people aren't on the road, you're not able to gain obviously revenue from the program. So I could see it, obviously, depending on how long traffic is still at a standstill. Maybe if there's some concession we can have from conduit to kind of lessen the expense on the city side, because it's not regular times. Is there talk about doing that with conduit?
There has not been, but I'd be happy to bring that up with conduit, and I'd be happy to bring it up with the law department to see what our legal opportunities are. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because it's a fixed intersection contract. We pay a one-time fee per month for each intersection, and it's not based on volume. So I understand your point, that since we don't have the volume, they're still getting paid. Likewise, if we based it on the number of people going through red lights and they were to get a percentage, Conduit would probably be making far more than what they're making now. But your point is well taken. I'd be happy to engage Conduit as well as the law department in that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Councilmember Oliver? Councilmember Oliver? Okay, we're good. I guess we're gonna move on.
But, no,
Yes.
but,
Yes,
okay. Now, my sentiments was the same, but mine was on the customer service. I was thinking, basically saying as Councilman Johnson, the customer service volume is not there. And I was wondering what the legality of that is being taken, if any, because I know the volume's not there as far as you're saying, waiting 1 minute and the volume's not there. So that's what I was thinking as far as the customer service, and we lease this out to individuals for the customer service call center, and we don't have the calls coming in like that due to the virus.
Right. Council member, intuitively, yes, you would think that the volume has gone down as a result. Actually, what I was doing today is I'm putting together some statistics on what our call volume has been over the last month and a half. And our call volume has actually, in some cases, gone up. Okay. Because they're unable to come into the customer service center. People are beginning to rely more on the call center. But I'd be happy to share that with you. Intuitively, I get it. Yeah, I think you would think that because people are just kind of hunkering down and not looking at these kinds of things. But you know, the good news is that people are still paying their bills and they are calling in. So I'd be happy to share those numbers with you when I get them done.
Okay, Mr. Chair, may I follow up?
okay.
I'd just like to say, I think the Department of Finance is really doing a great job. I know some of the constituents in the 3rd district are very pleased with your office and some of the changes you have made. So I just wanted to give you kudos. That's all. I just wanted to double check to see if the volume, but now that you made that statement, I can see people sitting home, maybe calling a little more regularly just to check on and see what's the status or whatever. I just thought of the customer service. I was thinking it may be, the volume may be down, but you may be right. It may even pick up. That's all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Guy? Mr. Guy?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you. Earlier, did you say, I think you were asked about additional expenditures related to COVID? And did
Yes,
you
sir.
say 0?
I said that there were not significant expenses related to COVID.
Okay,
It's been mostly in personal protection equipment and laptops. We do anticipate putting that information into our grant request under the FEMA reimbursement program. So we think that we're going to be able to recover, but we have not had a large outlay like some other departments would say that are more on the front lines.
okay. So does your department handle putting in one request for the whole city, or is each department does that separately using your staff?
What we're trying to do is we have asked all departments to code to a specific project account. So when they have a COVID related expenditure, they will, when they fill out their paperwork, they will post it to a specific COVID account. We will process that as a normal payment, right? So if they order something, they could, but they also are coordinating with Willie Patrick who is heading up, our emergency management approach. And he's keeping an eye on what those expenses are. But we do help the other departments with isolating those expenses. We do have two grants team members here who are monitoring those dollars, and we will be participating in submitting for a federal reimbursement under the COVID-19 or the CARES Act program.
Okay, so basically from a budget perspective, using the word COVID is basically saying these are unexpected expenditures. Essentially, that's what we're saying. So is that a dollar amount? Or is there a way for you to provide a listing of these unexpected expenditures, things that have been coded? Is that something you can forward to us so that we have an idea of the, I guess, magnitude and nature of our unexpected expenditures? Because that has some impact on how we look at the budget moving forward. Can you generate that report?
Yes, I can. I do want to have one caveat though. Under the CARES Act, the money that has been allocated to the state and what can be reimbursed is for expenditures directly related to COVID. What we are anticipating though is that what's going to happen if we have a continued decline in revenue as a result of economic issues that are sensitive to the city, such as a decline in wage taxes or a decline or an increase in water bills not paid and loss of revenue because people are out of work. Those are not allowed to be directly reimbursed by the federal government under the current situation. We are having conversations with our congressional delegation to look at what if those dollars could be used for potential revenue losses over the long run. Those are two, so there are two different issues. The short answer is yes, we would be happy to get you the information regarding direct COVID-19 related expenses. As far as revenue projections out, we're going to be having our conversations with WeFact, and we will be apprising City Council as we move forward once we get a little bit more information under our belt.
Yeah, my interest, I'm interested in both, but for purposes of today, if you could just forward what you said you could, that'll be fine, because that'll allow at least to get a sense of what the COVID impact has been that's already documented through those codings. Okay, the next
Happy to
item
do it.
is cash balance. Okay, you mentioned that the utility, you made reference to a utility that we provide services for. And what utility were you making reference to? Because you weren't specific.
I'm sorry, it was the water, sewer, and stormwater utility?
Okay, so now with respect to that utility, were you stating that our budget or your budget includes money to provide free services to that utility? Is that the point you were making?
I don't think so. What I was, we anticipate that because of unemployment, people being unemployed, we're anticipating that there may be delays in bills. Now, what we have done is we have suspended penalties and interest on any bills that are not paid. But we anticipate that our accounts receivable is going to go up. We do not anticipate any forgiveness of that at this point. But we are not shutting anybody's water off. We are not going to send properties to sheriff's sale. They have all been suspended. Penalties and interest have been suspended. And any customer who is having a difficulty making their payments can call our offices, call the customer service center, and then they will be transferred to our account services team to work out payment agreements or any other kind of hardship issues that they may have. Now, there are some programs that we work with, such as the Delaware State Housing Authority has a program for seniors to help with some of their utility costs. We work with DSHA on that particular program. So we would be happy to have conversations about that. One thing that we don't have is a large corpus of money, and something that we should contemplate into 2021 to have a hardship account for the city. That is something that I continue to have conversations to see whether we can raise some money for that. But that's the relief package in a nutshell for now.
Well, now I guess my purpose in the question, all the information that you gave was good, appreciate it, and it's helpful to the community as well. But my focus of my question was, you mentioned that we provide services for this utility. And my question is, do we give them a bill? Because we're dealing with our budget. So do we send them like an annual bill that they pay for the services that we provide to the utility? That's a very narrow question. Do we bill the utility for the services that we provide?
Well, the water utility is our utility.
I understand.
So we run that. We do bill other utilities such as Delmarva Power and Light.
No, I'm talking about water only. The water sewer utility that we own for
Right.
accounting purposes, don't we keep separate books?
We keep them in a separate fund. It's the water sewer fund,
So
correct?
do we bill them for the services that are provided?
We bill, actually the water sewer fund bills us in terms of if you had city buildings, they get a bill. Water sewer fund, we the city are the water sewer fund, we bill customers. And all of those receipts go into the water sewer fund. They do not go to the general fund. So a short answer to your question is yes, we bill out every customer who receives water, sewer services and stormwater services. We give them a bill and they pay us directly. And it goes into the water sewer fund. Those dollars then go to operate the water utility and to offset, other payments, the operating, debt service, and capital infrastructure for the water sewer fund.
I think I'm still trying to get you to narrow down. Like you mentioned that there's billing that's done by your department and collection.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So do you provide those two services to the utility for free, or do you send them a bill given that you provide these services?
I understand where you're going with this. So in effect, we split the cost of the finance department's operations between the water sewer fund and the general fund. For instance, part of my salary is split between the water fund and the general fund. Likewise, all the way down the board, whoever works in our department and works on water sewer operations or finance, they do the billing, they get split funded. Likewise, we also bill out any material support, etc., to the water sewer fund. So they are split funded. In essence, yes, the water sewer fund pays for the Department of Finance's opportunity, operations.
Okay, thank you. C, D, E. So in order to do that, basically the people in your department, they keep track of any of their hours that are dedicated to the utility. They keep a record of that.
Excuse me, it's by job function? It really is split out by job function. I have my assistant Lois McLaughlin here, and she's helping me with some of the answers to the question, but it is split out by job function. I do not believe that there is a record of how often they work in water sewer fund versus general fund. We know by their job activity where they should be split funded.
Okay, so maybe in our budget, is the order of magnitude of the possible impact even worth looking into whether or not those percentages could maybe be off by a little bit that might be to the benefit of the city of Wilmington's budget? Is the order of magnitude even worth looking into?
Actually, that is done by Black and Veatch, our consultant on the water side. They do take a look at, we go through an exercise each year in which we level up who we think, who is working in the water sewer side and what percentage of their hours are established there. That is a document that Black and Veatch produces for us. And I think we go through a pretty thorough conversation about that. So in answer to your question, I think it's pretty accurate. And we have an annual evaluation of that.
Okay, can you send the most current evaluation?
Yes.
All right, thank you. The next question I have has to do with revenue projections.
Mr. Guy, there's a special presentation that we're going to do on revenue projections.
Is that today?
No, it'll be Monday.
Okay, well, all I need from you is the revenue projection documents, minutes, notes that were used to create this budget. So you still have those, whatever was voted on at the last, I guess, WEFAC meeting?
WEFAC has not met yet to vote on those documents. They will later this week so that we can have them on Monday evening.
Well, I think you may be misinterpreting what I'm asking. We have a budget bill in front of us right now. So unless there's something magical going on, somebody used some revenue projections to create this budget.
Right.
So I want the document, the revenue projections that were used, the documents that were used to come up with a revenue projection that led to the creation of this budget. I understand there's going to be modifications. Everybody makes modifications the closer it gets to budget, actual passing the budget. But I want the documentation that was used to create this ordinance, because that's right at this moment, that's the most current information.
Right.
So do you still have that information, and are you able to forward that in?
That's already been shared.
The administration can forward you the revenue projections that were used for this budget, yes.
Right, okay.
It's already been shared as a part of the budget package.
But they can get you that information and then we'll review it again on Monday evening.
Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, don't get this wrapped up with anything that you're doing. I'm asking for the revenue projection information that was used to create this ordinance.
Fiscal year 2021 budget.
Right.
Right, yep, I understand.
Okay. EF. All right, that's good for now.
All right, so people waiting, President Shabazz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Taylor, Council had did a resolution, I mean, in your new programming and improved mode of operations, does that include being able to respond to the senior ID program that council sent the resolution over for? Be able to identify our seniors through the real estate tax exemption, and be able to identify them for if there was any citations and things of that nature. Identification program recommendations we sent over. Does your new programs include in capturing that information?
It has been helpful to us. I know that you and I have had conversations about integrating it more. I think that we need to do so. We do a lot of communications. There's a number of areas that we probably should be communicating with the seniors more, particularly on this Delaware State Housing Authority Assistance Program. And we also sent out information just recently to all the seniors with regard to the tax exempt, the lifetime tax exempt status. But there's more to do. I will say to you, we probably need to maximize that. We need to get together and have a conversation about how to do that, how to use that more effectively.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, there's one other question. Also, the recommendation for us to apply with the DENREC for the grant, if financial assistance available for low-income subgroups. I know that with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, I know that the DENREC was waiting to upgrade that whole process or application. Have that been included in your new listing of new and approved mode of operations?
We are waiting on new regulations that are being promulgated for that. I'd be happy to get you an answer on the status of that this week, but I'm awaiting it as well as you. That's going to be a key item in our arsenal to help with alleviating some of this. In fact, it's going to be probably more important now given the COVID-19. So excellent suggestion. I'd be happy to get you an update.
Great. And one last question, Mr. Chair, if I may. What percentage of your staff is still in the office, and what percentage is working from home?
We have approximately, I'd say about 25% of the employees are on caregiver leave. We have, I would say, approximately 35% are still working in the building. Okay. We have a pretty high percentage working in the building, particularly in our customer service area, our wage tax area, and then the remainder are working from home. Okay. And in some cases, they are rotating it out. Like for here in our accounts payable unit, we have individuals that come in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, come in Tuesday and Thursday, so they can rotate out so that they are not just working in isolation. They're getting an opportunity to work from home and still be, social distancing.
Great. And I'd like to just extend my appreciation to those who are flexing their lifestyle to, to make sure that the finance department is still functioning.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Dixon.
Thank you, Chairman. I just had a question for, I was actually also had a question around the red light ticketing too, but I also think that we probably won't see all those numbers yet, just because of where we are, and we haven't really had enough people. Probably the people that are calling in are the ones who already had their tickets already prior to COVID. So there probably will be an increase or decrease in some point for the red light tickets based on that, as well as for the parking tickets. I was wondering, I know the parking tickets like downtown, for example, are free right now. So how long will that be until, and then also will that impact the finance dollars coming in as well?
You are correct. We are looking month to month on the revenue production from the red light camera and the parking tickets. We've had about a month of solid, a solid month in April. Once we get to April 30th, we'll be able to give you a solid month of what that performance looks like. So we're as interested in it as you are. We're watching it day by day. Believe it or not, the red light camera, I don't know if we've seen that volume drop all that significantly, but at the same time, we're also installing the new red light cameras in those intersections that had come online. So we're trying to tease out some of that data. In answer to your two questions, we are going to be providing, the PRIOs have suspended ticketing across the city or parking. The governor's order is extended until May 15th. That was kind of our date that we were looking at, but the administration, our administration hasn't made a decision yet, just how long we'll continue to have that occur. My suspicion is that May 15th may come and go and we'll still be in a social distancing environment, but we will have some, and we'll have some data on what that looks like revenue-wise. But we're going to continue until the administration decides let's restart the parking ticket issue. I will tell you that we get about $3 million in parking revenue each year. We're building into our revenue projections a full quarter, if not a full quarter for this year, starting in March through June, of no additional parking ticket revenue. So we're going to be losing maybe a quarter of our ticket revenue as a result of this. Likewise, if we don't bring it back online July 1st, we may be, and we're building this into our revenue projections, another quarter of ticket revenue that may slightly come up, but will not be back to 100%. So we're anticipating, a drop in ticket revenue going into the next quarter. That's really from July to September of next fiscal year. We're building that into the modeling. So I think we're losing a good 25% of our revenue. That's going to be about approximately $1 million.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Greco, did you want to make a comment or? Mr. Greco, I see you have your hand up. Did you want to make a comment?
I did before. I was going to just tell Councilman Guy that the entire revenue section of the proposed budget book includes the information he may be looking for.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Adams, did you have a question at this point?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Phil. Yes.
Mr. Adams? Mr. Adams, we can't hear you. Is he still there? Mr. Adams, we can't hear you.
Councilman Adams, your microphone is muted.
Oh, okay. Is that better? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I ended up rebooting twice. Don't mean to disappoint the director of finance like that. Yes, nice to see you. Wonderful that your staff has been working through this pandemic. As you know, I ask each year with regard to the remediation and material weaknesses in the CAFR at the end of the year. I was wondering, I guess you can't do anything during the pandemic, but how were you making out remediating those weaknesses prior to the virus taking effect?
Well, one of the areas we talked about is kind of scrubbing the trial balance during the year. instead of waiting until the end. I've got a really good data analyst. His name's Ross McGinn. He and I have been going through the exercise of looking at the transactions that have occurred in this fiscal year and making determination about where the correct GL postings should be. So, looking from that standpoint, I think we're making some progress on that. One of the things, we're coming up on our close. We have, starting May 1, we're within 2 months of our closing our books. Every year we go through a process with the departments to make sure that they are on top of making sure that there are no material weaknesses, at least in the process area. And also we'll be dialoguing with them about some adjustments that are going to have to be made to the books in order to make sure that the dollars are appropriately accounted for and reconciled. So this next 2 months is going to be critical to be able to come out with a clean audit next year. I don't anticipate, the other good part of it is that we will be able to, because we're getting ahead of it, my goal is to close the books by Thanksgiving. Usually we do it by December 31st, but I've given my staff an incentive. If we can get the books closed by Thanksgiving, they'll be able to have a nice holiday. But nonetheless, all joking aside, I think the accounting staff recognizes that we've got to eliminate a number of these areas that were highlighted in the budget, and we don't anticipate that we're going to have anything significant this year.
Super,
Okay.
nice to hear that, Director Taylor. Thank you very much.
All right.
Mr. Farrell, I don't have any more questions, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Let's try to get back to our questions.
It took him 7 minutes to call on me.
We were 4A, 4B, any vendors, DBEs.
And
Mr. Greco, turn off your microphone. He lists 2, GA Blanco and Sons and Influencers Lab. Next, we wanted to get an update on the implementation of the Water Utility Center. 400,000 budget in 20 and 220,000 budget in fiscal year 21.
What this is because of the success of going to the customer service center, the administration has decided to bring a number of other departments into the fold to allow us to have one single point of contact for customers to call in other areas, such as Parks and Recreation, Real Estate and Housing, Office of Economic Development, the Mayor's Office, and Finance. And what that's going to do is going to allow us to track those numbers a lot more effectively about who's calling in, how we're getting the constituents' issue resolved, and how fast. I also know that Public Works has embarked on a system called Salesforce, in which we're going to be able to track constituents' issues through the year. So if someone calls in, they will be able to create a ticket. That ticket will then be either resolved or handed off to another department, and we'll be able to track where each constituent's issue is in the process. That way constituents don't have to call multiple numbers to figure out where their issue is in the city. That is culminating in a 311 call number that the administration is contemplating putting in place. So instead of calling our standard customer service number, we will have a 311. You'll be able to dial 311 and be able to call in. It is not up and running yet, but the administration is currently working on it. The costs for these are being, portions of it are being included in the finance department's budget.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, did you have a question?
Yes, Councilman Friel. I just had a question, Director, regarding DBEs. I've had this discussion with other department heads. Currently, for your legal services and law firms, are any of those vendors DBEs?
They are not.
Okay. And I've had this similar conversation with other department heads. Are you interested in working with the other departments in trying to establish a DBE list for law firms?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Under our procurement section, which is under our responsibility, we provide obviously contracts out to numerous vendors. One of the things we need to do is connect those two things up, which is the DBE list. And we do keep the DBE list, and we send out those contracts, those RFPs and RFIs out to people that are on the DBE list.
Okay.
The question is, how do we encourage them to be able to apply, right? How to meet the requirements of the DBE and to be able to be selected. So I am absolutely on board with having us work through what that looks like. I think it's incumbent on our procurement staff to kind of work through that process in tandem with the Economic Development Office, which handles the DBE, but I've been more than happy to help you with that.
Great. And just to follow up in regard to sheriff sales, we have had talks about, kind of slash budgets. And I know you have in-house and outside counsel support. Is there any way we can kind of look at the sheriff sale budget and trim away some of that fat? And I know you're going to be talking over the next few weeks, but if we're not moving sheriff sales through this summer or possibly the end of the year, is there some room there?
Yes.
Okay.
We'd be happy to look at it.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Oliver? Councilmember Oliver? There she is.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to speak on the DB aspect. I've been in conversation with Jeff Flynn and Mr. Dwayne, in reference to working a little closer with the DB contractors. So I would like to stay on the map if y'all meet about that, or we could talk about that off the record. But Mr. Flynn, I would like to meet with you in reference to how your department can be more engaged in, like you said, try to connect the list of the RFPs and the other organizations together so everybody can be on the same page, because I don't think it's necessarily that they don't know how to apply or don't have the requirements. I think sometimes it's just getting the information out.
Precisely. We would encourage and welcome an opportunity to do a workshop for potential DBEs. Let's try to get something organized. I think we'd be happy to do that.
I agree. Okay, well overdue. Thank you so much.
Last part of this question talks about the funds collected fiscal year 2021 for some of the commission categories. You have a nice chart here, but I'm assuming a lot of this was put together before the major impacts are going to hit us from the COVID-19, at least for 2021.
That is correct. These were done pre-COVID-19. We did see some softness though, as of March 31st, we saw some of the parking citations were down. That was that had a little bit of the impact.
Right.
The red lights were down, but the red lights were down as a result of the
construction.
One of our biggest problems was the construction that was going on,
right,
and the difficulty to be able to get the permits done, and then the actual be in the road bed to be able to put them in. But we think that pre-COVID, we think that we're going to have all of the red light cameras are going to be operational as of June 1st. And I stand by my previous a reference to the parking citations, and that we're probably going to go out till September on some of the softness in the revenue.
Discuss the planned use of $535,000 budget professional fees, up $25,000. And, you're going to list for us the vendors' names and contracts.
Right. Could you go to the next page, please? We've had a number of, some of the things we wanted to do. I made reference to them at the beginning of the presentation in terms of creating some efficiencies. We've had work done with respect to training and development. We have our accounting services. This is help that we get from the accountants in the creation of the CAFR, and some supplemental reporting. Issues had popped up last year where we had to use their guidance to work through them. We'd like to have what we call a collections module. This is a payment agreement module so that we can have better tracking of people who enter into payment agreements. Right now, we do everything on paper. We have a binder that has payment agreements in it. We want to be able to convert that into a module into Munis so that we can track them more effectively. We have people coming in for multiple payment agreements simply because we lose track of their previous payment agreements. We want to tighten down some of the efficiencies that you're seeing there. The procurement piece is that we wanted to implement vendor self-serve. This is where vendors would be able to go online and be able to do all of their work and dialogue with us through the internet. Next page.
Okay. You have a list here then of your temps, the budget, and their planned use for each of them. I'm not going to ask you to go through each one of these.
I only have one comment, and that is that this is all pre-COVID. The question is, we're still unclear about how many temps we're going to need going into a post-COVID world. So we're going to be evaluating this as part of that as well.
Discuss the planned use of $280,000 in the post-direct charge account line.
This is a residual from last year, where in the middle of the year we increased the mailroom systems postage allocation, and we're doing a lot more communication via the mailers, such as the Water Gazette, some of the mailings that are going out. And then we have our annual expense for business license and wage tax coupon booklets. This is something that maybe we'll explore in FY22 as to how we can get away from all of this paper-intensive, costly paper-intensive operations. If we could put things more online, I'm all about creating systems to be able to do that.
Just if we have any constituents listening in, we are getting close to our end here. So if you feel you want to make public comment on the finance department's budget, I'm going to need to see you to raise your hand so I get you in before 6:30. Mr. Guy, do you have a question? Mr. Guy, do you have a question?
Hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. For the most part, when people talk about COVID, the focus are the problems. But there's also some good things that are happening in this world because of COVID. So I want to ask you, as this COVID has hit, has it caused you to notice anything about your department that from a budgetary perspective that might have illuminated something that was good for you to find out?
One observation, and that is we have historically done a lot of our work in a face-to-face manner. and we have depended on old systems. COVID-19 has really kind of made me think about how to improve some of the technology that will allow people to do things more efficiently with ease of transactions from the comfort of their homes. I think that as financial services has evolved, I think the city of Wilmington needs to evolve in the same way. With that said, I think investments in these systems are warranted. It's going to take a little time to figure out what that looks like because you've got to go through an evaluation of the operational processes. But if we can have people pay online with ease, that would be a great thing. If they can get information more effectively and submit documents more quickly online, I think that that's a good thing. So COVID-19 has taught us a lot about how to engage with the customer from a remote standpoint.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Deputy Director Leverage, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to add to that. That was a great question that he asked. Some of the efficiencies or things that we see that the finance department have been able to recognize on this COVID. One of the things that I've noticed is that, as the director said, that more people are paying online. They are still sitting in their payments, but that is beneficial for us because when we go out to look for a vendor, we can definitely push for the online and give them some direction on where we would like to move in regards to that direction. Another thing I found to be beneficial is less distractions, of course. If you are in the building, you don't have the outside world coming in. So that could allow us, which has allowed us to be able to process the payments that was coming into us, at least about 500 to 600 a day. We were processing them and we were up to date daily with them. So we could see the benefit. There was some benefits of the COVID-19. So our department has been working diligently with the community.
Thank you. Okay. Discuss the planned use of 162 budgeted for printing and advertising. And you put together a chart here showing the breakdown for each section, along with the breakdown by general fund and water fund, and then the purpose of each of those expenditures. We're getting close to the end here. That's why I'm trying to get some of these in. Discuss 144,000 budget between travel and membership and registration.
This takes into account not only travel and membership and registration, it also takes into account training. In fact, 56,000 of it is allocated to the department for department-wide training. We went through a series of, and are still going through a series of trainings for everybody in the department in the areas of customer service, employee engagement, meaning that how to work better with their employees and their colleagues, and creating more efficiency in the process. We've also done supervisory trainings. All of our managers have been through extensive training on working with their colleagues. So we think that this was much needed, much due. We're going to continue to do that. Now, in a post-COVID-19 world, we are going to be making some considerations about whether this is a lot. For instance, if we know that there isn't going to be travel because of people's restrictions on travel, we may be able to make some adjustments there. But again, this was a pre-COVID-19 budget, and we'll be evaluating that in the next couple weeks.
You see the possibility as we develop into a new normal down the road that there'll be less need for travel, and you could have these same sessions through webinars and different outlets like that?
Absolutely. In fact, we're doing more of it now.
Right.
And most of our engagements with our our vendors such as JP Morgan Chase is doing some free customer service training with us. We're doing that via, Zoom calls. So.
Okay. All right. Discuss the planned use of 107,000 budgeted for overtime.
We've cut back our overtime in the last over the last year. The mayor was concerned about where our the administration's overtime budget was overall, and we're cutting that back. However, with that said, we do have some overtime that is required, such as year-end audits and CAFR preparation. There's always something that comes up as a result of that. Some of we need a little bit of money to be able to pull people out for customer service trainings. If you're having all this training, you need to be able to backfill with some of the overtime so that people can fill in. And lastly, when tax season, when property tax collections come in and when wage tax collections come in, we are almost guaranteed that we have to have some overtime in order to handle that surge of payments coming through.
Okay, the last question is the org chart, which you'll find at the end of your packet or the presentation for you to look over at your leisure. And then he's got a breakdown once again of his different divisions and folks within that division. That's all our questions for the finance department's hearing. That takes us pretty much to the end here. Are there any additional questions before we close out and get ready for our IT budget hearing? Was there anyone from the public on that did want to comment? I'm not seeing anything. All right, Councilmember Dixon.
Yeah, sorry. I tried to get before you went to the public. Just had a quick question regarding I know we had talked about briefly the status of the sheriff sales and water bills have been suspended. Do we know how long that'll be in effect?
Again, the May 15th date is the date of the governor's put out there. We suspect that that's probably going to be longer. I will tell you that we have accommodated in our revenue projections, at least in our initial models, that it's going to be longer. So we've built that into kind of our scenario. We think that again, it'll all depend on when we can get the workforce back to work. If people are unemployed, it puts more pressure on some of the other areas. So it'll be dependent on how fast the recovery occurs. It's an open-ended date at this point until the administration tells us to start, or we decide to re-engage on those items. We're going to keep it open-ended.
Thank you. And then just one quick question. I know one last question. I saw that the court fee admin side from the general fund is like down to, I think it was like, is that because we're not using the court fees? We're not using the courts as much right now, or is there a reason for the decrease?
The decrease is that we've seen a decrease in the amount of red light tickets and parking tickets going to court.
Okay.
So we're seeing, and from that standpoint, people aren't appealing. We're spending less time there. So that might be a positive. You never know.
No, I thought that was great. I saw that inside the notes. So kudos to you guys for that, for sure. And thank you for all the work. Because if I have any questions around water bills or any of those individuals that come up, Director, you've been great at responding and answer to those. So thank you for that. That's it for me. Thank you, Councilor.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Thank you all for your participation. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back at 6:45 to hear from the Office of Information Technology. Thank you.
Thank you.
that's up there. Good evening and welcome back to this session of Wilmington City Council's Finance and Economic Development Committee. This is the sixth in a series of hearings for the fiscal year 2021 budget that was presented by Mayor Michael Brzezicki back in March. My name is Bud Friel. I'll be hosting the meeting. Other council members joining us this evening are President Hanifa Shabazz, First District Councilperson Linda Gray, 6th District Councilperson Yolanda McCoy, 7th District Chris Johnson, and at-large members Cyril Adams, Rashida Dixon, and Sam Guy. We had just heard from the Director of the Department of Finance, and now we're going to hear from the Department of Information Technology and its Director, Mr. May. We will follow the same process that we followed for all our hearings. We'll have a brief presentation by OMB, Office of Management Budget. We'll have some opening remarks, touch on the vision and priorities for this department, and then we'll get into the question and answers that have been presented to them. The time set for this hearing is 90 minutes. I'm asking all questions pertaining to budgetary matters. Any programmatic or constituent issues should be addressed in a different forum. Any questions we can't complete, council will have to follow up with the department director or Marshall Bass-Knight, our chief of staff. There will be a period at the end for constituents to make public comment. They will be allowed 3 minutes to talk, but the comments have to be in regards to this budget. We're also joined by the chief of staff for the mayor, Danny Washington. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the Office of Management and Budget. Are you there?
Yes, good evening, Chairman Friel and President Shabazz and honorable members of council. As noted by Chairman Friel, I would like to note that the following budget was finalized before the COVID-19 crisis began. I will be presenting the budget as it was originally proposed. However, Director May will be discussing any potential modifications to the budget as a result of the coronavirus. The Department of Information Technologies is requesting a total FY21 budget of approximately $8.9 million. Of that amount, $6.4 million is in the Data Processing Division, $1.6 million is in the Communications Division, and the remaining $900,000 is split among the Word Processing, Mail Services, Duplication and Printing, and Mapping and Graphics divisions. Regular salaries increased by a net $30,000 or 2.2%, largely due to a citywide 2% COLA, mandatory step increases for non-union classified employees, and annual reviews for executive and managerial positions. This increase was offset by the removal of $5,000 in overtime and a decrease of $39,000 in pension contribution. MS&E increased by a net $238,000 or 4% due to the following changes. Consultants increased by $275,000 to complete the implementation of the city's comprehensive 311 information call center, which will allow constituents to call one number, 311, for all non-emergency requests for service and information about city programs and services. This $275,000 increase is completely offset by the removal of $127,000 for an operations manager consultant and $190,000 for a one-time records digitization project budgeted in FY20, leading to a net decrease of $179,000. Other non-capitalized equipment decreased by $169,000, which reflects the removal of funds budgeted for one-time projects in FY20. Finally, computer software licenses increased by $482,000, which reflects the addition of $142,000 for the 311 call center licenses and a $299,000 increase for upgrading the city's accounting software to a cloud-based system. This concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and ask the Director of the Information Technology Office, Mr. Devon May, to make any opening remarks and discuss a little bit his mission, vision, and priorities with us. Mr. Mayor, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening, Madam Council President, Chief of Staff Washington, Councilman Friel, and members of council. I'm glad to see everybody's safe and able to attend tonight, and I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to present the IT Department's FY21 budget. Before I get started, I'd just like to thank all of my staff for all they're doing over the past couple of weeks to allow all of their fellow employees to be able to continue to work and serve citizens of the city of Wilmington remotely. It was a massive effort to get everybody up and able to work for the people who are working off site. In particular, I'd like to thank Nathan Billups, Nick Gosnell, and Darius Brown for their dedication of coming onto the site and holding down the fort, especially with the conditions being what they are. So the Department of Technologies is broken into 6 units. These are listed below by their functions. Our mission is enabling technology to increase the effectiveness and efficiency of services for the employees and citizens of the city of Wilmington. Our vision is to provide a secure, efficient, and flexible technical environment that will enhance the productivity of the city's workforce. And below are listed our FY2021 strategic priorities. Any questions on this?
I don't see any. So we'll go ahead and jump into the questions.
Thank you.
Discuss the budgetary account lines that could potentially be impacted as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
So the 2 account lines that are affected would be our equipment line and our line for contracted maintenance.
Just want to touch on that a little bit.
It's just that if the pandemic continues, if we need additional devices for employees to work remotely or work from home, then our equipment line would be impacted. And if we need additional security for those devices or services for those users working off site, then that would impact our contracted maintenance line where we pay most of our security items from.
Could you discuss any current vacant positions you might have, duration, time frame for filling them?
Yes, we currently have the document management technician position. It's been vacant since the previous employee retired in July of 2019. The position will be eliminated this year as part of COVID cost cutting.
Okay. Discuss the planned use of 1.8 budgeted for professional fees and justify how this augments your staffing team of 22 full-time employees. And there's a number of sub questions to this one.
So professional fees are down from 1.967, roughly about 200K, about 170K from FY20. 3 major decreases were the removal of 127K for operations manager consulting position, removal of 117K for senior application support specialist, and removal of 130K for L&I's records completion project that will be finished this year. The major increase in the line was 275K for the implementation of the city's 311 call center in the Salesforce software.
Can you just tell me quickly what the L&I initiative was for 60,000?
Just for document scanning, there's a piece of it in L&I and a piece of it in council to digitize paper records so that they would be accessible online in a digital format.
Can you talk a little bit about the number of staff that you have, consultant staff by Diamond Technology and the functions performed with a budget of 583?
Yes, as with last year, there are 3 consultants, 2 for network and 1 for application development.
Okay, and Specify length of consultant contracts, cost per year, and number of years city's been engaged. City's engaged.
Here is the, just displayed now is the chart for all of the active consultant contracts for the city within my department.
Are any of your vendors DBEs?
No, there are no DBEs on the list that provide technical consulting services.
Discuss the 1.7 budgeted for equipment up 300,000 over the prior year's budget. There's a number of sub questions here. Specify new software requests for various city initiatives.
So the increase is not exactly in the equipment, is not in the actual equipment line. The equipment line is down 168 from last year due to the money from the L&I project being not requested again for this year. We're also down with our PC replacement. We're almost finished the project. And so that has been, the request was halved for this year to 50K from the original, from the 100K that we had requested last year. The grouping of lines is up 299K due to a proposed request to cloudify the Munis ERP system. But due to COVID-related cost cutting, this project is going to be removed. The only cybersecurity related funding for the grouping is, in this actual grouping, is the 42K requested for Proofpoint. And this is the city's new email security product. Most of our security spending, it comes out of contracted maintenance.
And your new software requests?
Listed below, I mean, listed, sorry, listed now. We had 4 requests. One from IT, Salesforce is citywide, I mean, citywide for the 311 center. And then Parks had 2 requests.
Okay, question, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson,
yes, just a quick question, Director May. Does the city have specific cybersecurity insurance? I understand some of the costs may be cut in that realm, but does the city have specific cyber, just the carve out insurance? Because I know that's bigger and bigger with government, privacy.
Yes, we do. We worked along HR, and risk management was able to procure insurance to the tune of about $5 million for the city.
Okay, great. And just kind of jumping ahead a little bit, I see you have the Salesforce 311 call center. Is the Salesforce specifically so that constituent services has a platform to perform their services?
The Salesforce product is to augment the 311 call center, which will impact a lot of different departments that'll be working together. But the main thing is allow the city to maintain customer relationship management between constituents who call in for assistance, to be able to track the requests throughout the departments and be able to manage it end to end. So that's the main gist of it.
And am I correct that constituent services currently does not have any software at all?
I cannot speak to that.
Okay, because based on my knowledge, they don't. That each individual person may use Excel or something separate, but I'm under understanding that they don't.
I don't believe they don't have a product of this caliber. No.
Okay. Thank you very much, Director.
No problem. Thank you. Good to see you.
President Shabazz. President Shabazz.
Okay, there you go. I just would like to say that we would love to include your department in our effort to increase your engagement with various other DBE technical companies so that we could make sure that your reach for trying to acquire DBEs were maybe extend past the DBE list that we currently have on file.
I have already taken the step of contacting Dwayne in EOS in economic development to work with my knowledge of individuals I know in the community to try to work to develop and add some people to the list by the time by this time next year.
Great. Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you to accomplish that.
Councilmember Guy. All right. Councilmember Guy, are you with us?
I thought earlier you mentioned that in connection with the COVID-19 question, that the equipment line was impacted because you had to obtain some computers. And I guess, did you purchase or lease the computer equipment?
We always lease, Councilman. I mean, we always purchase. We always purchase. We don't lease.
Okay. And given what you've learned, I guess, is that going to be a continuing, do you expect it to be a continuing expense in the current budget? Does the current budget reflect the need to have more equipment of that nature?
Right now, I believe we've served we've served the essential personnel that have been outlined to us. But as the pandemic continues to go on, oftentimes departments may find additional personnel that may find situations where they may need to work remotely. So it's hard to predict. Like I said, we had roughly 87 individuals that were classified as mobile users and had mobile devices before the pandemic hit. And we just received an order of 50 PCs to accommodate some of the additional requests. So I believe we've caught up to all the departments that have requested now, but I mean, it's hard to say who else they may determine down the line that may need those services.
Okay. Now, also, I think I heard you mention something about digital documents was something that's no longer going to be needed in your budget. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, the L&I project and with the document conversion project to digital, we're behind on it due to we had an individual that was running the original project was promoted this year. So we promoted and then we promoted another individual into that position. So in between getting everybody up to speed on their position and training that, we got a little behind and then a COVID crisis hit. So we are behind, but we should be able to finish that project by the end of the budget year. If not, I will request a carryover from finance to complete the project, by the end of summer, barring nothing else coming unpredicted on it with the pandemic. So
you also, I thought I heard you say something about council having something to do with that.
Yes, the current person on the project is working with council to digitize records in council as well as digitize the records in L&I.
Okay, and so there's part of your budget that relates to what you're doing for council.
Part of the money that's funded will be utilized to digitize both of those sets of records. We should have enough funds to complete everybody's request with those funds.
Okay, so when you have a specific project that's only affiliated with 2 departments, you still have to pay for it out of your budget?
Generally, anything that's technical related comes out of my budget.
Okay, so on your list of software, I believe, does your department make all the purchases of software? Is that in your budget, or does each department purchase software and it's in their budget?
Most software purchases are in my budget.
Okay, and so does your budget have anything about redistricting software?
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Have you ever heard that term before?
No.
Okay. And then the next question I have is on this issue of consultants. You put the list of all of the consultants. Are any of these consultants hired through going like out to bid?
No, these are renewals. Normally, most of these contracts are renewals.
Okay, and then once the renewal period is over, or once the period of the contract is over, how do you get the next person who's going to have this contract? How are they selected?
Well, we've continued a relationship based on the success that we've experienced. We've continued a relationship with the current contractors that we have.
Okay, so at some point in time, if you have to have a new contractor, does it have to go out to bid, or are you just able to select who you want?
No, we would most likely put out an RFP.
Are you required to for these particular 10 or so contracts?
I think there's some on professional services.
I heard somebody talking, but their voice didn't come through.
I think it's professional services.
It's Ms. Washington.
Yeah. I believe some of these are professional services, if not most of them.
Are you still there, Director?
Yes.
Staff, whoever's answering that
Chief
question.
of Staff answered your question.
Well, what's your answer?
I said most of those contracts are professional services.
Okay, my question wasn't what's the classification, because the public doesn't understand that. I asked, is the director there just able to pick whoever he wants, or does it have to be put out for bid?
Professional services.
Yeah, so we follow the procurement process, Councilmember Guy. So however, the finance department gives us guidance on these contracts, that's the process that we follow.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna ask again. The public has to understand, do you select who you want, or do you have to put it out through a bidding process for these 10 contracts? Be plain spoken. The public needs to know. If no blacks.
Councilman Guy, Councilman Guy, we have continued our relationship. I've continued a relationship with the vendors that are in place since I've taken to position. If at a point that in discussion with the mayor's office and that we will terminate the relationships, then we would issue, more likely for like the network contracts, like that we would issue an RFP so that we would have people, compete for the bid and compete for the contract.
Do you have to, can you terminate these, take them out your budget and pick who you want to pick?
Some of these contracts I'm sorry, let me raise my hand.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, some of these contracts, if you look at them, some of them are not all related to, they're technology related, but some of them are from various departments. So you'll have some contracts in this budget that are related to public works. You'll have some that, that may fall under human resources just by virtue of it, temp agency. So he doesn't have the authority to end all of these contracts. What we did was we streamlined this whole process of having all technology related expenses under his department because they were so disparate before that we couldn't keep track of them properly. So we wanted everything under the Department of Integration Technology, just so that we could get a handle on it and have some structure to it.
Okay, so basically, given that the answer, because my question hasn't been answered in a clear way for public understanding. So when you don't do that, it allows the conclusion to be reached is that the reason we don't have any Black people in IT making money and why there's no Black lawyers making money is because the people who make the selections have chosen to make the selections that way. Okay, now if you had put them all out for RFP, that's another story. So we have all this money that's moving and none of it in a city that's almost 60-some% African-American. Each person in their budget has all this money where none of it can go to minority vendors. That's problematic, and your budget, the budget shouldn't just be used so that only some people can receive some of the benefits of it. So both of those areas in the budget should be zeroed out. There should be no money spent for lawyers or IT if it's going to be spent in a discriminatory manner like that. This is not back in the day where folks didn't allow people to learn. Now there's qualified IT and lawyers running around here that can do anything. So I think them budget lines need to be zeroed out if we're serious about where the money moves. And I'll stop right there. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Well, all I can say is some of these agreements go back to previous administrations. And I think I've heard in a couple of the sessions today with Law and others, that council members are going to work with the Office of Economic Development and the Finance Department to make sure we can identify and contract with some DBEs for a number of services. So I think the issue has been driven home during these budget hearings this year. So let's go ahead and move on. You also had the list of contract data groups. It's the same issue in that none of them are DBEs, but we just talked about that. And you already talked about funds for cybersecurity.
Yes. Well, for these products, these are like mainstream products. There are no DBEs that produce products like ERPs. There are no people in the DOB list that produce, products like DBEs or some of the software that's listed here. So we don't have an option for that.
Okay. All right. Discuss the planned use of 1.3 million budget in the communication and utilities account groupings, an increase of 91,000.
So the 13.321 million requested will be used as follows. 809,740,000 is requested for telephone direct charge, including items such as the city's high-speed communication lines, long distance charges, and the drug tip line. This line is up 87K to account for additional taxes surcharges for 16 sites, including 6 new connections to firehouses, replacing older Verizon technology. Even though it's up 87K, we'll be pulling the old Verizon technology. It'll be replacing the old Verizon technology, to which we paid roughly 52K. So there'll be a net spend of 40 or so K. 361,790,000 is requested for mobile airtime, which includes all of the city's wireless connections, and 150,000 is requested for the city's postage charges.
Okay, and then you have a list here of the number of cell phones, tablets, laptops per department.
Yes.
All right, discuss the 870,000 budgeted for contracted maintenance.
So the request for 829K in data and contract maintenance is up 20K over the FY20 request for security related expenses. This was purchasing additional firewall security services for our cloud expansion project to Microsoft Azure. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Is there something you wanted to add to that, or?
No, I was just going to say that contracted maintenance is that line houses a lot of our security and networking, like data equipment.
Discuss the planned use of 150,000 budgeted for office and general supplies. Then you got a list here.
Yes, that's the breakdown list.
Discuss the planned use of 143,000 budgeted between printing and advertising.
So 73K is budget. The 73K budget for printing will be used as follows. 20K will be used by the data processing division to order payroll forms and utility billing forms, and 52K will be used by mapping and graphics for large print jobs, such as posters, banners, signs, postcards, the budget book, and the CAFR. That can be handled more economically. That can't be handled more economically by offsite vendors. I mean, it can be handled by offsite vendors.
Okay, is there another slide here.
So the 15.3K budgeted miscellaneous supplies or parts will be used as follows. 10K will be used by the data processing division to purchase computer hardware such as keyboards, memory, and brackets. 5.3 will be used by the communication division to purchase miscellaneous parts such as nuts, bolts, and the fittings necessary to maintain city radios. 55K budgeted in access and parts for equipment will be used by the communications division for hardware necessary for maintaining city radios, such as batteries, replacement parts, antenna, and chargers.
Okay, discuss the 120,000 budgeted for rental, specified number of Canon copy machines that are rented citywide, the length of the contract.
So there are currently 39 Canon copy systems in operation throughout the city at a cost of $119,621 annually. We added 2 additional units this year, and the city received stated downward contract pricing for the contract. We renew the devices annually with the vendor under the state contract pricing.
What is the life of one of these Canon copiers?
I would say somewhere in the vicinity of 4 or 5 years, but the vendor regularly, under our contract, we get replacements. So if a unit is at that point, then they just replace that unit. We had several units replaced with newer units this year.
All right, that's what I was going to ask. Okay. Discuss the planned use of 92,000 budgeted between the membership and registration and travel account groupings.
So the brunt of the funding, 50K, is requested for development and invitational training for all city staff citywide. 25K is requested for certification and training for IT department staff, mostly delivered by electronic means to reduce travel costs. And 6K is being removed from our travel line and registration line to that was going to be used to send employees to the Kronos conference. Due to the pandemic, it will most likely, the travel restrictions will still be in place at the time of that convention. We're requesting that we can retain 10.5K for to send employees to the Tyler Connect conference in this following spring. Hopefully, things will have returned back to normal by that time. The Munis conference is a big conference for a lot of our staff, and we have new staff that's just come into the application development department that would benefit from the training that they receive at that conference.
Go to the next slide.
So the breakdown of the 25K that we spend internally on the IT department roughly breaks down to about 33,000 per employee for application support and 3,900 per employee for network and help desk employees. Specific training and certification goals are being assigned to staff as part of their annual evaluations. The better we can help them be, the better and that they can achieve, the more that'll help the city and bolster their knowledge, its knowledge base. Training is included with the purchase of hardware and software solutions that IT employees are tasked with implementing and supporting. So a lot of the costs for training that they receive as that we receive as part of buying the solution, come rolled in there and don't come to us as an extra cost. And employees are encouraged to take advantage of free online and in-person IT training and seminars as well.
Okay, and you have a page here that kind of summarizes your post-COVID-19 budget items and the amount of the reduction.
Yes.
These are things that we've been discussing throughout the presentation. And then the last question is, which we ask all the departments, is to provide us an organizational chart for council members to review at their leisure. Okay, before I open it up to the public, is there any other questions from council members at this time? Not seeing any. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make public comment on the budget for the Office of Information Technology? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Councilmember Johnson, did you have a final question?
Yes, yes, Director May. I just wanted to inquire about WPD IT expenses. Are there any direct WPD related IT expenses in your budget?
Yes, under let's see. Under equipment requests for this year, police asked for a number of items.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm trying to locate the.
And it might be my
Send it to
recollection,
you. Go ahead.
but
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It was surface flows, right?
Yeah, they requested surface devices.
I think there was a question in the police budget hearings that addressed that.
Yeah, because it is my understanding, Director, weren't those requests made under WPD's budget already?
I don't believe so. I mean, when WPD makes a request for IT or IT related equipment, it's always included in our budget. And if they purchase, normally if anything is purchased additionally, it's due to grant funding that they use, not outside of our budget.
Ms. Washington, did you want to add to that comment? Or?
Typically, the department heads will have requests for technology, and you'll find it in the budget, but the actual funding amount for the technology is placed under the IT department, and they actually order the equipment. So you may hear about what their funding request is for technology, but the actual allocation of that is under the Information of Technology department.
Okay, I found it. So 7 Surface Pros, 8 Surface Pros for the Office Professional Standards requested 7 Surface Pros. Police Criminal Investigation Division requested 8 Surface Pros. They requested backup hardware and software, and backup hardware and software. That was the 3 requests that were approved.
Okay.
And what we normally require is when police request, anything for approval, we require them to send us a list of the equipment that is aged out that is replacing.
Hey, Stephanie, did you have something you wanted to add to that, or?
No, Demond answered it, but the exact amounts are listed on page 13 of the budget packet under the other non-capitalized equipment.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. May, for coming in and answering our questions. I also want to thank the Director of Finance for his presentation. I did want to just make one brief announcement. These are the future hearings. We have a hearing this Wednesday, April 29th. At 4 o'clock, we will hear from the Planning and Development Department, followed by the Public Works Department. And then Monday, May 4th, will be our final hearing. We will have first at 4 o'clock revenue projections, and that will be followed by the presentation on the Water Sewer Fund and their 6-year financial plan. I thank council members for all their participation this evening. Have a good night, and this concludes this meeting of Wilmington City Council's Finance and Economic Development Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.